Hello, this is John Eric Hagstead with the Religion of Art, Theater, and Science. There was a technical issue with the beginning of this episode, so we will join you as we have started the conversation discussing the Women's March that the Religion of Art, Theater, and Science hosted, along with two other local groups. Please enjoy episode 9 of RATScast.
And maybe just a little bit more on the administrative side that we could have done differently to make the process a little bit smoother. But for the most part, I mean, those were really the only two, maybe three hitches in the whole thing. I thought it went very well.
Yeah, our deputy of video games made an art piece. I would say it was literally like a
canvas.
4-foot canvas or something. It was. I still think you could hang it on the wall and call it art. There was probably just over 80 people there, and that's a pretty good turnout for Longview. And it's not the first women's march around here, but it's the first one
Post-COVID.
post-COVID, and the one Rats has been involved with.
Yep,
So.
and we were a coalition with
flamingo.
ourselves, Lower Columbia Indivisible, and Calais County Democratic Women. So definitely enjoyed the opportunity to collaborate with another group of people, and we hope to do it again.
Yeah, so that was fun. So speaking of, I guess one of the topics that is kind of out in the atmosphere right now is still the ongoing controversy over Texas's new law.
Are you talking about their new abortion law,
Yeah.
SB 8.
which makes it illegal to get an abortion after only 6 weeks?
6 weeks.
Well, I think not so much. So this is what they've done. This is kind of the loophole. Instead of there being any type of legal reinforcement in the form of arrests, they're allowing citizens to press lawsuits upon either the individual that seeks an abortion or anybody that facilitates that person getting one, person or organization, even their Uber driver. And so they're able to press suit and potentially earn a bounty or a reward, if you will, of $10,000. So as you can imagine, that's going to be encouraging a lot of people to be seeking out and turning in those that might need abortion health care.
That's a lot of people that are just not minding their own business. Right?
And Texas is a huge state, so for people to seek abortion healthcare services, they're going to have to travel out of state, risking being discovered by their neighbor or coworker or whoever.
It won't be a problem for affluent folk.
No, but for marginalized communities, BIPOC citizens that already face those challenges of access, of being able to find healthcare centers, transportation, potential child care during the appointments. Those are all huge hurdles that many people cannot overcome, even with the right to have an abortion being in place, at least before the passing of SB 8.
Mm-hmm. And here's what's happened since it was signed into law. First of all, right out of the gate, leading the way in courts was the Satanic Temple with their own lawsuit against the state of Texas. Followed shortly by the United States Justice Department. The United States of America v. Texas is a thing now. And then there are two doctors who have partnered with two lawyers to get themselves sued for performing abortion services as a way to force the issue into court and test the constitutionality of it that way. So there are leaders on the forefront in both the public and the private sector working to try to mitigate the damage and reverse course on this draconian measure from Texas.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just looking up how soon you can detect a pregnancy, and they say the most accurate way is after a week after your miss period. And if it can take a month, which is 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Then at 5 weeks, you get the most accurate reading, and then you've got a week to schedule it, or you're SOL. Like, just as far as the time frame, and missing periods is fairly common.
Pretty common, so a lot of people
So-
don't necessarily pay attention.
Right. You could maybe not even know you were pregnant until it's too late and you're just forced not to be able to get an abortion then.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll see some movement in the courts. I'm hoping that the precedent set by case law is powerful enough that our stacked Supreme Court doesn't end up basically sending us to the dark ages with this.
My grandmother was born stillborn, and people prayed over her, and she came back to life. So she feels very obligated to uphold the name of her savior in her eyes. And I talked to her just yesterday after the Women's March, and she said, oh, how great for women and all of that. And I said, well, they're pretty for abortion, you know. And she said, well, I'm pretty for life, so they may not have liked my signs. And she asked me, what's murder? How do you define murder? I'm asking that question now. How do you define murder? To play the devil's advocate, I am for abortion. If I had a baby right now, I'd go abort it today, maybe. But I'm just saying, for sake of fun argument, how would you define murder?
Well, I think murder is pretty well defined as a premeditated act of aggressive homicide against another human being, right?
So the question you're asking is not how do you define murder, but when do you define life?
I think that would be her question.
Right. And that's always the question. And the answer is nobody knows. That's the point. So when somebody might define life as the first time a heartbeat happens inside the belly, somebody might define life as the first time the baby takes a breath outside of the belly.
As a matter of fact, that's how it is defined in the pro-lifers' handy-dandy toolkit, the Holy Bible.
So, again, we're dealing with a population that is a mostly religious right attempt to change the definition of life. Right? Just like they're trying to change the definition of a lot of things right now. So, sorry for your grandma being a far-right ideologist on this topic, but her religious narrative does not supersede our constitutional rights. Well, it's that simple. I'll leave it there, even though it sounded like I had more to say. I'll leave it right there, right?
And I think that to a certain extent, the laws that we have aren't meeting the needs that we have as a nation, as people, as individuals. I mean, other draconian measures have passed in recent years in states where they required before an abortion for a woman to go in and have a transvaginal ultrasound, right? Universally agreed upon, not medically necessary before an abortion. And the AMA was silent on that, the American Medical Association. And so, and I don't know why. They're starting to talk a little bit more about COVID and how frustrated they are about things. But so the problem is many layered. When it comes down to people wanting to control other people's behavior, and they have no business doing, right? It's not anybody's choice, but the person who's making it. And let me tell you, what the choice really is whether or not to attempt to carry a pregnancy to term. As soon as you find out that you're pregnant, you may not actually be carrying this child to term anyway. Right? You can try, and I think that's missed on a lot of people, is that when you find out you're pregnant, you want to have the baby, you try to carry it to term. Now, for the vast majority of us, it usually works thanks to modern medical practices and health science and public health and things like that. But it's really an attempt to carry the child to term. whether or not you want to try to do something that may or may not happen is the real decision. And if you don't want to try to do that, then why should you?
And, this is nothing new, but worth mentioning, the right that define life as beginning, at conception or at 6 weeks, first heartbeat, whatever they're choosing that day, don't really seem to give a damn about that child once it's skin side. So they're really just pro-birth. They're not ensuring that the child never goes hungry because, 1 in 5 children in America do go hungry. They're not ensuring that they have all their needs met, safe housing, food again, clean water, education.
We've got some particular troubles here because polling data shows that the vast majority of Americans, somewhere upwards of 70%, including Democrats and Republicans, are for these social safety measures like universal child care and universal health care and these things that, Bernie Sanders has been talking about since about 1842, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so it's just complete hypocrisy. How many children are in the foster care system? How many children are needing to be adopted? But they stay in that system because the Bible also tells them to be fruitful and multiply, so other kids, or other people's kids, just aren't good enough for them. So they're going to keep them in those fucking systems and not help them, which doesn't really seem Christ-like to me, but what do I know? I'm agnostic. So yeah, I almost don't care where life actually begins. If you're not going to follow through on your values, then sit the fuck down.
Mm-hmm. And if you believe that that it's wrong in the eyes of God to terminate a pregnancy with medical intervention, then don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's this disconnect again from reality where a lot of the far religious right people think so or believe so much that their God exists that other people must obey their religion. It's like, no. That's not how America works. And that's quite the opposite of what America was founded for. It was for the freedom of or from religion, right? That's implicitly a part of the word of. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand in today's English language understanding.
Yeah,
The Constitution was written at a time when words had different meanings. When even at the beginning of the 20th century, 1905, right? What was that quote that the judge said? There are manifold ways in which these bodies could be changed, blah, 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 blah. They used words that we wouldn't usually use in today's language. So you have to actually go back and look at what those words mean.
In their context, and that, the same is true about the Stone and Bronze Age serial comic strips that they still believe in. You got to take a look at what the audience was and who they were meant for.
Which is why removing God from our money and from our pledge is vital to the continuance of our democracy that is really at the precipice of being over anyway for unrelated reasons. Well, maybe not unrelated. Maybe it's directly
that
related.
wedge strategy in Project Blitz. They have installed deep believing evangelical people into elected offices, first at the local, then the state, and now at the federal level. And people who have no sense of decorum. Marjorie Taylor Greene running through the halls of Congress after the last swearing-in session, telling Ilhan Omar and others that they had to swear in on the Bible because they weren't actually Congress people because they had sworn on the Koran and that doesn't count. That is in no way a civil thing to do.
Well, that's an anti-American thing to do. That's quite literally the antithesis of what it means to be an American.
Well, let me ask the question. Have we ever, collectively as a nation, upheld the true concept of freedom of religion, because it seems like very shortly after we colonized out here, certain religions were already, like, I don't know, wreaking terror, and like the Salem witch trials. You know, I mean, if we were supposed to all be able to be free to practice whatever religion we want to, or no religion, then why have there always been, like, genocide since the founding of our country? I mean, even take it back to Native Americans.
Well, just because you codified something into law doesn't mean everybody's obeying it.
And it's much easier to get a population of people to obey laws or rules using fear. And when you are afraid of something, you are much more likely to act inappropriately towards it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, you know, they take the things that you don't like about a system which is predicated on patriarchy and the hoarding of wealth by a powerful few, and they make you afraid of that. So you don't try to question it. And, you know, I think that since you know, like Jesse Jackson and even Barry Goldwater to a certain extent, you know, we've been talking about, we're not going to be afraid to talk about the things that we don't like about this system anymore. You know? And then down through Bernie Sanders, and then AOC and the Squad currently. You know, we have a lot of good progressive representation. They just stopped Nancy Pelosi from holding a vote on the reconciliation, or not on the reconciliation, on the bipartisan Senate bill.
Infrastructure.
Infrastructure bill, right. So, you know, we are also growing in numbers in, you know, common sense and reason is growing in numbers in leadership positions. Problem is that the other side that's growing in numbers is growing dumber as we're growing smarter. And that creates a deeper and deeper divide in ideologies.
We definitely need more progressives elected, and while I'm very hesitant to, like, step up to bat, it might take one of us at this table, I don't know, or we just start really working to help the candidacies of, you know, other people that are stepping up to the bat, and making sure that our voices are actually represented in the Congress. And hopefully all the science deniers will die off.
Well, and you know, and that's one of the reasons why John Eric put together RATS, is because of the privilege that's being used by, in particular, the Christian right movement in trying to gain religious exemptions to this or that, or or making objections to their deeply held religious beliefs, and by creating a religion based on art, theater, and science, then what we've done is we've enshrined religious protections for those things.
Mm-hmm. So we are here for you. We're on standby. We'll need a lawyer eventually. But...
yeah. Eventually.
Is that good? Are we good?
Oh, that's pretty short. We weren't going that long.
Oh, yeah. We only just kind of got out of the gate there talking about a couple of things. So,
yeah.
What else is going on?
Maybe now is a good time to suggest to all of our 7 listeners that they go to www.ratswa.org and click on that donate button right at the top. It's a little yellow button that says donate right in the middle of it. You can't miss it. So if you're enjoying this content and you would like to see us, we are working toward getting a camera to start recording these podcasts at the same time.
I'm
so
have to start looking at my appearance, aren't I?
Yeah, but you know, I speak with my hands a lot, and sometimes the message that I'm trying to communicate gets a little bit lost when it's just my voice. And also, people want to see this face. I'm just saying.
I'm not going to say why they want to see the face.
so they can point and laugh. Yeah. Can you believe that tool bag? The expressions he made today. Did you see how crazy his hands were flying around when he was talking about spaghetti?
So you can help us get to that goal of showing you a face that that you can learn to love by clicking on that donate button.
www.ratswa.org. It would be nice if you donated.
Thanks.
So what else is going on? What's on your mind, Dylan?
I don't know, man. What else is going on? Yeah.
Well, what's coming up? What traditional holiday is coming up?
Perfect.
Halloween
Halloween's
or
coming.
Samhain, depending on how you
Did you see the guy on Cascade Way that has 4 of those 12-foot tall skeletons in his yard?
No. Are they like the blow-up ones?
No,
Or
they're
just-
the big Home Depot, $3, $6, $9, $1,200 worth of Halloween decoration.
Jeez.
Wow. Oh, is that the house that's always really extra? And they're
Yeah,
also
has all the
Trump
football
supporters?
stuff and everything.
Mhm. I think I toned down on the Trump stuff, but there's still like American flag for days. And,
Yeah.
So sad that American flags are kind of a symbol of like, oh, that could
The
be a
far
douchebag.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's so
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of don't like to wave them around anymore.
right.
Plus, there's not much to be proud about.
Right. I'm not super proud right now.
But this is why we're here, is to work on restoring small d democracy and hopefully putting ourselves in a place that will allow the human race to last a while longer. But that's still debatable.
I mean, that would be cool, I think that, humans as a spacefaring civilization eventually is a neat idea. And in order to make it there, we're going to have to survive. We can't just ditch planet Earth right now. We still need it.
Mm-hmm.
Now it doesn't need us.
Nope.
People keep saying save the planet. Planet's going to be fine.
Yeah. The planet's just starting.
We have to save our own asses.
Yeah, it's starting its purge. That's what's happening. But it'll always bounce back, as far as we know. But it definitely does better without humans on it.
Until it is eventually enveloped by the sun, becoming a red giant toward the end of its lifespan.
Or gets swallowed by a black hole.
Ah,
I used to be
yeah.
so deathly terrified of those.
Rove black holes just floating through the solar system and is sucking the Earth in.
I did just read an article though that some scientists have found some black holes to they use the word traversable, and I know traverse from working in mapping at my job. It's the function that I use to run out legal descriptions. So I imagine when they say traversable, they mean a mapped out route. And so they're thinking that some of these black holes are actually wormholes to get to other places in the universe.
That's been an idea for a long time.
Yeah.
But
They haven't been
No.
able to prove it yet, and I don't think
Yeah.
anybody's volunteered to go through one
They-
because that's definitely one way to
not
get
that we could get to one.
right. Right. But yeah. So maybe not all would be entirely lost if we got swallowed by a black hole, but I would imagine that gravitational force would fuck us up pretty bad if not kill us.
Spaghettification.
We are but a tiny blue dot floating in infinity. Yeah, if I really think about that, especially if I'm really stoned, I will get anxiety. Just
In a way, it's kind of calming.
Hmm.
I don't know. Just maybe everything's meaningless. Who cares? It's then the importance of anything just kind of goes out the window. And
Well, I think the importance of enjoying this temporary existence while you have it goes
Right.
up for me.
here,
Right.
here.
agreed.
And without any inherent meaning to the existence of the universe, I get to invent my own. Ha ha ha!
Yay. Yep.
Yep. That's right. I've kind of decided that the reason that we're here is to make things better for those that follow, which is also one of the main reasons why RATS is in existence. Yep. Cool. Do we want to revisit ignorance is bliss? Or do we kind of...
Now, you talked about that.
Yeah, before we started recording, I
Yeah.
mentioned that.
You said there was a period in time where you thought that ignorance was bliss, and you just enjoyed happily being in the dark.
Yep, I think I'm maybe not, but I'm thinking that's probably true for a lot of privileged white people.
Mm-hmm. I definitely acknowledge my privilege, and I, am able to discern, at different points of my life in the past, like how big or small my world was. I mean, my world has gotten bigger as I've aged, but I also just didn't know what I didn't know.
So is your nose.
So, I always considered myself to have had a good public education. And I was privileged enough to be able to go to a 4-year school and obtain a bachelor's degree. But even in college, when my world was starting to feel bigger, it was still very, very small. I realize now. I think definitely having moved from coast to coast, being introduced to a new culture, seeing lots of more lifestyles and just understanding different aspects of the world. I mean, even just kind of looking at things like trade and industry, out here versus the East Coast. Hartford is the insurance capital of the world, so lots of business majors, finance, accounting, and those were the type of jobs out there. And out here, it's a lot of trade and the logging mills, the ports, just other things that one would go to trade school or maybe even not, maybe high school.
Well, you would apprentice into perhaps with a union or something like that.
And these people that have far less education than me are making a hell of a lot more money than I am. So that alone was eye-opening, just realizing, I don't know, I guess just more about capitalism, I guess, and the different markets and different sectors and understanding how that all ties in.
Well, and I think when you came out here too, as when I came out here, which wasn't that long ago, cost of living here was so much lower than other places. Mm-hmm. Now it's starting to pace up as more and more gentrification happens from Portland outward.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I've turned maybe not for the best, but I turned on that memory notification for Facebook, so it brings up posts that you posted on this day, however many years ago. Mm-hmm. And I absolutely said racist things on Facebook. I let my privilege shine, proud, but it all just came from that place of true ignorance because I just hadn't learned, I hadn't had those experiences, I hadn't met those people that shared their experiences.
And you were ignorant to it, right? You didn't know that you were saying racist things, and you didn't feel like you were a racist in any way.
Right, because no one had ever said, hey, that's a racist thing to say.
Yeah.
You don't know until you know.
Yeah, graduate school clears that up real fast.
Well, right, and that's, I think that ignorance is bliss thing was kind of changed, somewhere in high school, and I think the understanding our own inherent biases, racism, bigotries, whatever form they might come in, that doesn't happen until grad school. For some, maybe for some it might be undergrad.
I think it's a function of post-formal thought, or at least it seems that way. Speaking of Piaget's stages of development, cognitive development, you have the formal operations, which you're talking about your experience kind of coming into that period where people come to full formal operations, and the underlying network of what the frontal lobes are going to be is there. Now they're not fully myelinated, and they don't work as fast as they're going to until you're about 25 or so. And so that's maybe where the markers come with, so your ability to think in different perspectives and dialectically. And
so is that why then critical race theory is usually a topic that's taught at a graduate level or greater in school? Because human development is at a point where they can actually comprehend.
You have to take cultural stuff in most bachelor's programs as a humanities credit, especially if you're in anything closely related to a social science.
I don't think I had to
for your theater degree.
Yeah.
You never even took culture classes,
Did you take
about
costume design?
Yeah, I took costume design.
That's a little cultural.
Well, sure. I mean, our whole thing is cultural, but I don't think I ever took
You probably take
a
art
specific
history.
course on the cultural ramifications of racism, right?
Right.
The negative impacts of gentrification.
No, but what I'm saying is that there are a lot of sort of cultural things that do get taught at the undergraduate level that are a part of critical race theory, which is not just the idea that America is still racist, but yeah, that's part of it. We are. It's an advanced theoretical framework that discusses the dynamics, the power dynamics between racial groups through America's history and the history of Western civilization. So it's it's not a simple concept that you can just say, "Hey, we've outgrown that." Well, we still have to recognize the past and learn how we're still impacted by it today.
This is the worst chair. Any slight movement? Sorry, I apologize.
That was cherished.
I don't care. I don't like squeaky chairs, and I don't care who knows it.
Yeah. Getting off of the chair subject, the thing that worries me is seeing all the videos of the school board meetings that dissolve into chaos. I mean, people look like they're zombies pounding on windows of publicly owned buildings, not wearing masks during a global pandemic, and they're not there to necessarily fight the mask mandates. That might be another day, but they're there to ensure that critical race theory is not being taught in their elementary schools. Right?
Okay.
And this
Well,
isn't even a subject.
Part of critical race theory is teaching black history. Things like Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King, which is just skimming the surface of black history.
And we're seeing places, was it New Jersey? That
They
the
banned a
school
children's
board-
book about Rosa Parks.
Yep. Yeah.
What was their reasoning? Do you remember right now?
I think they were just saying, "Oh, it's a critical race theory thing."
Well, it stirred animosity. It made the white children feel guilty.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, that's
Oh,
kind of the point of. I mean, maybe not feel guilty, but to experience.
to experience a sense of injustice,
Yeah.
to see somebody overcoming it.
To create a sense of, empathy, compassion.
So the amount of racism that is spread out across our national school structure is going to take a huge amount of work to root out. And I've seen it here locally. I'm sure I've talked about it a few times, but I mean, it's principals, it's paras, it's teachers, it's administrators, it's literally ingrained throughout not just our school district, but in every sector, private or public, everywhere across our nation. We're seeing this, that very important CEOs or elected officials are denying the realities of science for what? Their own gain? There must be some monetary purpose to this. That's the only thing I can think of. It's either monetary gain or a fear-based reaction to whatever propaganda they've been fed.
Well, yeah, I think that ties back into what we were saying earlier. Just having been raised in whatever setting they were, let's presume religious. They don't want to be exposed or have others be exposed to anything that would question or challenge or just lie outside the scope of what they have been taught to be their reality.
Right, so we're getting back to there's a difference in our perceived realities. And if we can find a way to get them to agree on our shared reality, if there's a way that you can talk to your grandma and get her to understand our shared reality, I would like to know it. Because I have not found a single way to connect with the far right and to just agree on our shared reality to move forward. Because until we do that, there is no moving forward.
Well, I think, again, it's a very tricky thing to do. and there's some techniques that are being called street epistemology today, but it's based on Socratic questioning and a genuine curiosity. Who knows? Maybe this person has the answer to why they're actually correct about how the Civil War wasn't about slavery. And maybe they're going to give me that missing piece. And just question. Just ask sincere, honest questions, and their argument will break down eventually.
I don't know, man. I think you'd really have to talk to somebody in that venue because, especially with Fox News, is what I'm going to blame, even though I don't know it for sure. So I was asked the question, what defines murder? And I went into the points that were being made because I believe that we have an overpopulation issue. So I don't think that abortion is the worst thing for humanity. Sorry, too bad.
Well, I don't think it's the worst thing for humanity for other reasons, but we can talk about that later.
Sure, yeah. But she jumped then to, there are so many Planned Parenthood clinics around people of color, and we are trying to kill all of those people.
Oh, the Black Holocaust argument.
So to actually be able to rationalize with those people, I think is going to be difficult just because they've rationalized it themselves or have been told that this is a rational, perfectly human response to anything.
But
and it's fallacious thinking, and it doesn't consider the entire context of things.
And more misinformation. Because if
Yes.
we look at our closest example, the closest Planned Parenthood that we have here locally is in Vancouver, and definitely more of an affluent area. I mean, it's right by a strip mall in an apartment complex and stuff, and I'm willing to bet that the vast majority of people that live in said apartment complex are white. I mean, again, when we talk about access, like all of these healthcare centers that provide abortions are usually in highly white populated areas. So people of color, if they don't have the means to get the transportation to travel to these places, they're already unable to get one. So
yeah.
But
and we should mention too that Planned Parenthood isn't the only place where you can get those services.
Right.
In Cowlitz County, the Cowlitz Family Health Center is a Title X medical care facility, and they can provide pregnancy termination services.
I was not aware.
But how do you get somebody to agree upon a shared reality?
Well, I mean, I think John Eric mentioned the closest thing is just bringing back the Constitution, because they always love to reference that, and you just have to make them see the other sides. You have your First Amendment rights, but we also have ours, and, if you don't like that, it's too bad, so sad. That's the way it is.
Well, you can take it one point at a time, right? You and Grandma may not be able to agree on whether or not abortion should be allowed, but what you can agree on is that it's happening.
Mm-hmm. And whether it's legal or not, it would still continue to happen.
It would still continue to happen, but that's not the point. She would like to see less of it happen, right? So how do we reduce the number of abortions?
Sex education that is not focused on abstinence.
Access to birth control. There's a number of ways that have been shown to actually reduce abortions.
And I'm sure universal health care would play a huge role in that, if we were to get there. But allowing people to be able to actually seek health care whenever needed without worrying about the cost, I'm sure would be another barrier that would be broken down in regards to...
I don't remember which European country it was, probably Germany or Holland or something like that, where they allowed unfettered access to birth control for any girl who had started menstruating without needing parental consent. And within 6 years, they had reduced the abortion rate by some 40%. So that's a real tangible way to reduce the number of abortions. So you got to come alongside, say, okay, well, this is happening, and you'd like to see less of it, right? Well, let me tell you.
I like it. Once again, it comes to actually dealing with then people and their sense of justice or whatever, and that can override rational conversation.
Yeah, or claiming fake news.
Yeah,
because that's an easy escape for those who don't want to think about a different reality other than their version. They just call it lumen press. I mean, fake news.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
what do you do about that?
When there is actual fake news and they are listening to it.
Yeah.
Right.
So to answer your question about Fox, right? Tucker Carlson is the most watched cable news program in the nation.
Jeez, oh,
Ron
Lou.
Tuckerson?
Tucker Carlson.
Oh.
Maybe say it again. I hate you.
Cock Tuckerson?
Ron Tuckerson? We'll just call them that.
Dick Tuggerson?
Dick Tuck?
Let me just check in with my folks here
Sure.
real quick. Anything we want to talk about to kind of bring today to a close? Is there some good news?
We missed Yom Kippur. Oh, sorry, that wasn't good news.
Oh man, I really need to atone for so much.
I know.
Good news. Well, the Women's March was pretty successful, I think, and our Deputy of Climate Change gave a couple of really wonderful speeches, and that went off good.
We had 80 people show up, and we had new members join RATS.
Yes,
Same day,
absolutely.
so-
Perhaps they will be listening to this podcast at this moment and considering going over to ratswa.org and clicking that yellow donate button at the top of the page in the center. You can't miss it.
Yeah. Is there a cool way we can end it? I mean, usually we give a false ending, so I feel like we should give that tradition a little bit of a bump and just go for another 2 minutes now that we've said we're going to end it.
And that's where it actually ends.
And that's where it... Because we usually, like, go on for another 5 or 7 minutes after we say, okay, this is it. And then
we're
we're
wrapping it up. Sunscreen. Fuck, man. Jeez. Yeah.
No,
Cancer.
because
Sunscreen.
you've got to protect yourself. Even when
Wow.
the weather is cool, the sun still burns.
But most sunscreen is toxic and terrible for the ocean and any water source, really. So that sucks for somebody like me that like needs that shit.
Well,
There
you know,
are
I mean,
eco-friendly
you can get away with
alternatives.
long sleeves and hats and stuff, but when it's warm,
Right.
you really don't want to have that.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are alternatives. Coconut oil. You know, I mean, Google it. But
Yeah, I don't wear sunscreen because I don't believe in the sun, and
And
my
I'm like
body,
You believe in the
my
sun.
24th Native
choice.
American, so I'm just like impervious to skin cancer. Yeah.
Perfect.
Tell me more.
Well, that one you're fine with.
Yeah.
You know.
I'll tell you that
Tan
much.
equals damage. I don't
Yeah.
know how else
That's
to
not
explain
no.
it to you.
Tan does not equal damage. Burn
Um,
damage.
It's all damage. It's all damage.
Says
Well,
the
the melanin
porcelain
is
doll
reaction
in the
to
corner.
the damage in the skin that for what you're exposed to. But then, if you continue to maintain that melanin and don't overexpose, then it
My arms
provides
get
some
a
protection.
little bit of color.
I won.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Wow.
Shocking
Almost
revelation.
glowing.
Oh my gosh.
Wait, do you sparkle in the sunlight?
No.
Depends on your body lotion.
Depends on how much confetti is in his pockets.
If I've been in Portland lately, it's possible.
So
Literally.
yeah, invest in eco. Actually, look for reef safe, as in coral reef safe sunscreen. That is non-toxic, will not bleach coral, and I presume is a lot better for any other water source than your average copper tone or whatever.
They're making biodegradable glitter.
Nice.
And if
nice.
you happen to be listening to this and you are an executive at a company that makes reef safe sunscreen, you can contact John Eric and talk sponsorship options for the show.
Yeah, we
later
will
on.
promote the shit out of it. We will make a YouTube video. Just send us a box and some cash.
I'll bathe in it for you, Daddy.